Okay, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode number 53 of the Del Valley Sports Pod. DG3 and CB back with you. Real quick, that makes this, recency bias aside, the Zach Baun episode.
Going local.
We are. He had a great game. I'm not foreshadowing anything, but it's the Zach Baun episode. Dan, how you doing? How we feeling?
It's a Zach Baun episode. Doing good, feeling good. Was able to really dig into the film, and you know what? In the way that it delays you getting over a bad loss when you have to watch the film deeply the next day, has the opposite effect when the team plays really well. So, it was a nice day to sit on the front porch, smoke a stogie, and watch some good Eagles football. Feeling good, Colin.
Absolutely. And judging from where we were 2 weeks ago when I'm screaming at my microphone that the coach is an absolute bozo and this offense looks inept, well, they sure proved me wrong, Dan. And I have never been happier to be wrong because they went from a team that looked like they weren't going to make the playoffs to a team that seriously looks like a Super Bowl contender in a short time of 2 weeks. And it just shows you how much can change in a short time in the NFL.
By all means, prove us wrong if we're
doubting. Yes, please prove me wrong.
If we're talking crap, by all means, man. It's really funny. I wanted to go back to the old pod and pull up the exact quote, information you shared, but I was going to kind of hope and rely that you could just remember. 2 pods ago, what was it that you shared about the Eagles of several years ago? Do you have that handy, and how the last team I think that made it to the World Series you had mentioned and talked about how that was a team that didn't just win games, they won by 15 plus points. Do you remember that exactly?
Yep. So the last time they won by more than 2 touchdowns was the NFC Championship game of 2022. That was also the last time they won consecutive games by more than 2 touchdowns. And this time we're talking about a team that has just won consecutive games of 20 plus points. And yes, after the Browns, I also rattled off the scores from 2017, where 4 of, I think, 6 weeks they won by 14 to 20 points. Were absolutely convincing wins every week. We never had to worry about a team squeaking out a win in the fourth quarter, and that's how the last 2 weeks have gone. Consider me surprised because that did not look like this team against the Browns.
I don't pull that up to say that we, without a shadow of a doubt, have a Super Bowl caliber team, but I am pulling out to say maybe you a little bit reverse jinx there by you, Colin, because ever since you shared that, they had 2 dominating wins.
For back-to-back weeks, we had backup players on both sides of the ball because the Eagles were blowing them out in the fourth quarter.
We got to almost see a Shipley touchdown at the end of this one, brother.
And then the damn backup lineman can't stop holding, and that's why they're backup linemen. But, oh, man, a lot to talk about from this game.
Yeah.
The Bengals go down the field, the first drive, 10 minutes, 19 plays? And you're like, oh, God, here we go again. Slow start, still don't score in the first quarter. But it seemed they turned a point in the middle of the second quarter, and then it was just all Eagles from there on out.
Yeah, and I got to be honest with you, that first drive by the Bengals, the defense didn't look horrible. They actually looked pretty good against the run. They did get to a couple third downs, if I'm not mistaken. The Bengals just had really good, efficient football. Certainly, we made some mistakes, but it didn't feel like an infuriating drive from a defensive standpoint. They just couldn't, obviously, get the offense off the field. But it's pretty impressive that that's how the game started and how the defense responded after that first. I mean, that's a pretty demoralizing thing. Did you say 19? 17. I got 17 plays.
17. I misremembered, but I knew it was in the high teens, which is a strike.
17 plays. When's the last time you heard of a drive going 17 plays? That's remarkable. But I think part of what that shows is that they probably did get to several third downs. There's no other way to have that many plays unless there's a bunch of penalties. But not just the defense, responding after that point, but also, man, if ever there was a time where you need the offense to finally be good in their first drive, it's following the opponent having a 17-play touchdown drive, is it not? You could imagine if they go 3 and out and the defense has to go back out there after being on the field for that long. That's a huge drive for the Eagles, even though they don't end that first drive with the touchdown. It was still a really big drive to give your defense a blow there and to get some points up there with the field goal.
If I'm not mistaken, it is their first points on the first drive of the season. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Because last week we were saying how they only mustered up 17 yards, but that was still their entire production from the 5 games prior. So they go down the field, 10 plays, 52 yards, almost 6 minutes off the clock. You're exactly right. That is how you respond when the opposing offense just trudges down the field. And you're exactly right. Say the Eagles go out 3 and out there. They only burn a minute off the clock. Now your defense has to go back out again after they're already gassed, and that puts them in a bad spot, which is how some of the games have begun. And it wasn't the most perfect offensive drive, but the first one that they got points on, way better than they have been. No complaints about that. And they finally were playing complimentary football come the second quarter. I mean, they gave up 10 points in the first half and then only seven points in the rest of the game. Actually, they gave up the 10 points on their first 2 drives, and then only the first drive of the second half was the other touchdown.
Defense locked in, and this is just, I'm going through my notes here just to make sure I don't miss anything too big. That first touchdown for the Bengals, that first drive, that was a touchdown pass to Jamar Chase. Do you know who was covering Jamar Chase on that play?
I just rewatched the game, but I can't. Was it Rodgers?
No,
not
a guy you want to be covering Jamar Chase, my friend.
Oh, it was Nolan Smith.
It was Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
In large part because they do a good job moving Jamar Chase around, man. And a lot of times, obviously, you see running backs and tight ends are typically like covered by linebackers and safeties, and they had Jamar Chase as like in the running back position, so to speak. I think it was 2 guys back there in shotgun with Burrow. And not only was he covering Jamar Chase, but it was a bit of an extended play. So Nolan Smith is just running around trying to figure out what the heck's going on. He was not built for that. And to me, that's like good design by the Bengals to put him in that kind of a position. Hard to blame Smith for that play. It's not the Smith you want to see from our team in the end zone. You want to see the other one running around in that end zone.
Yes, that was very good route design by the Bengals, and they have a good offense even without T. Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they still have some players, and the fact that they only held them to 7 points the last quarter and a half is really, really good sign for this defense. It feels like they're finally getting Vic Fangio's scheme, and I mean, Quinyon Mitchell looks great. Cooper DeJean had another good game.
Quinyon Mitchell had another first
one.
Pick. That was the one at the end of the first half, right, where it was just, I lost my guy here, Colin. I can't tell if I still. Oh, he's coming back. Wow, this is rare. This is a rarity. Usually this goes the other way around.
Sorry, you cut out there for a second.
It was Quinyon Mitchell, another almost first interception game for him, and it was, I think, the end of the first half, right? Just a long bomb. Why not? Oh man, this guy. I think that's 3 games in a row where he almost had an interception, like really close to one, just couldn't get it.
He's gonna get one. He is. And just throwing this out there, if you are watching on either Twitter or YouTube, feel free to drop in a comment. I apologize. Last week I had ourselves on full screen, so I did not get to see any of the comments. But if you're listening and you want to chime in, feel free to do so. Quinyon is going to get his. Isaiah Rodgers, he's playing really good football right now.
He came in because Slay got hurt, right? He pretty much took over the Slay position there.
Yeah. As Iceman says, Mitchell is a stud. And, yeah.
How about this? So this is a good segue here. Let's say on the defensive side of the ball, by the way, because there's a lot of good things to say. But I'll start by saying this. They got the trifecto, the turnover trifecto. They got the turnover on downs, the interception, and the fumble, the turnover trifecto. How about that, pal?
On 3 consecutive drives.
On 3
consecutive drives, all while the Eagles scored 3 touchdowns in a row on their drives bordering the first half.
Dare we call that complimentary football?
I think that's the definition.
Every man's dream, brother.
Now,
But listen,
go ahead.
the segue I was going to take you on is we're talking about Quinyon Mitchell and almost interceptions. We remember the one, right? Where it's a deep ball on the left side of the field, goes up for the pick, and there goes CJ GJ, and he bangs into him trying to make the catch himself, incomplete pass. This might not have, that might have had no lasting impact, but you see that pass where Isaiah Rodgers was on Chase, makes an unbelievable, very impressive tip to deflect that ball away from Chase, and CJ GJ is in the perfect position, and he's totally ready to receive that ball. I don't know if that's just coincidence or if that's good coaching after maybe that moment a couple weeks ago on how to like practice balls like that and maybe play it a little bit better. But that was awesome. And obviously so much of the credit goes to Rodgers there. That was a very, very impressive play on a very top tier receiver in the league. But CJ GJ, I mean, he's about a foot and a half away from that deflection. I was pretty impressed that he just caught that ball. I know it went right to him, but I don't know, man. If you're ever that close to something that's just deflected your way, it's pretty easy to just spaz out. Like that was, I thought, a very subtly impressive catch by him to be that close and just catch it and call it a day. I was very impressed. Great chemistry though on that defensive play overall, of course.
That play was so impressive that during the late window of NFL Red Zone, Scott Hansen dubbed that the play of the day.
Wow.
And I don't disagree, because how often do you see a tipped interception where it's not an accidental tip? It goes like, hey, I batted the ball.
It looked very directional. It really did. I watched it like I replayed it like 10 times in the all 22, and it's hard to see, but it really does look like he almost palms it to him. It was pretty cool. It was just like they practice it.
And even Ian Eagle was faked out. He didn't know that CJ GJ caught it. He's like, and it's broken up. Oh wait, they caught it. For like 5 seconds, he was confused about what happened. But that speaks to the athleticism of CJ GJ, because it was right in his face, and he somehow was athletic enough to grab it right there from short range. I do want to bring this up because maybe it's just me, but I always try to see if there's something we can do better or question something about a win. I don't know. I want to say this. Middle of the second quarter, it's 10-3 Bengals, and the Eagles go for it on their own 40-yard line with 8 minutes left to go in the second quarter.
Yeah.
With tush push, I get it. It's running at an 82% clip this year. If they miss that, they're giving them a short field. They could be just as easily down 17-3, and this is a completely different ball game. I was not a fan of that play at the time. Now, obviously, it worked, and the rest of the game went as it did. But at that time, that's one where it's like, that brings you back to Big Balls Dougie Peterson, Riverboat Doug. Where they're just like, doesn't matter where they are on the field, they're going to go for it.
This is back-to-back weeks of this happening, and us having a positive result. But I would say we brought up the same thing after the Giants game, and I'll get back to this specific play. The 4th and 3 to A.J. Brown. Phenomenal play, phenomenal result. But why are they going for that? The defense is playing great. Giants offense can't do anything. Well, we're just going to give them the ball midfield. 4th and 3, we're going to, so this was a different situation in that the other team's offense, is a lot better than that Giants offense. But it's not just the tush push on 4th and 1. That was like a 1.5 almost. It felt like
yes.
That was a long freaking yard, and I don't know. It almost makes me wonder. And that was their first tush push of the game. It almost made me wonder if that was such a successful tush push. Like it was so successful and so dominant. It almost made me wonder if they kind of like saw something, an opportunity or something, because that was they easily got that first. And it did feel like, a lot of times you will see a slight move to the left. That was almost like a quarterback run to some degree. He kind of was like took a whole step. He didn't go central like really at all. They went pretty hard to the left on that one, which again makes me think if maybe they saw something. I'd have to go back and look at every single time they've run it. It does feel like most of the time though it is more kind of to the left of the center, but straight up the middle. And that one did look a little bit different. I don't know. So I don't know if they kind of like saw something there, but I agree with you. It's risky business for sure. That was a long yard, man. That was a long yard.
That was a major turning point in that game. If they don't convert that, I do not think they win this game by 20 points. So they might not have even won the game. But such is football. One play can change an entire game. I want to, going off of what you said, I want to key in on how they use Landon Dickerson in the tush push, because it seems like they are always going over left guard. So I'm not sure if he's just that good at pinching inside and getting the pile to go right while Jalen goes left. Something to keep an eye on for sure. But
also at this point in time, your right guard is not the starter. I don't know, right? It's Steen.
Kyler Steen. Yep.
So I don't know if that plays a role in it at all. Who knows?
Probably.
You like to think all these guys know what they're doing on that play. They run it so much.
Yeah.
But I mean, Dickerson's a pretty big boy. And the other guy that normally plays right guard, Becton, he's a big trucker too.
He's a bigger dude.
You'd have to go back and look to see. It does feel like they normally do the left side, but that's another thought I had later in the game because they were so aggressively working the left. I was like, are they gonna throw in the other direction? It'll be something I'll be looking for the future because obviously defenses are scouting that play and practicing it all week. It'd be a nice little, switch it up on the defense.
Yeah.
Go to the right side.
I forget, was it the Saints game where they ran a wrinkle off of it and they handed it off to Barkley or something?
I can't remember the game, but yeah.
I'm excited to see or interested to see if they try to throw in another wrinkle because that one got blown up in their face. And whether or not if they keep running it well and effectively, if they decide to go back to that and try to throw in a wrinkle there. Well, something we'll have to keep an eye on. I would like to touch on some numbers here. So they're 4-0 when A.J. Brown plays. He has 408 yards in 4 games this year. So he's averaging 102. Saquon has rushed for 766 yards in their 7 games, 109 per game on just under 19 carries per game.
Yeah, efficient.
Yeah, it's 5.6 yards per carry for 109 yards per game. You want to talk about wearing down a defense. And we saw it the last 2 weeks. I mean, they had Will Shipley and Kenny Gainwell in there, not because Saquon couldn't run the ball. They didn't need him in there. And I love that. Save this guy for the playoffs when you're up so many points. And seeing the offense get to that point, again, is just helping them the next week and the weeks after that. And they're going to need to save up some rest because they had the earliest bye week at week 5 this year. So that's something we have to take into account when, all the teams are now getting into their bye weeks. That the Eagles already had theirs, and they're going to be playing football straight from now until whenever the season ends for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel like they do like the second half to come out a little bit more run heavy if the game script allows for it. I mean, it's tough. Recency bias brings you to the Giants game where they basically only ran the ball they probably ran the ball 90% of the second half. And that was, I know, a little bit unique, but felt like that's how they kind of closed this one out, and also getting Smith involved a little bit more in the second half. But I tell you what, this offensive line, and yes, Barkley, but this offensive line I thought was outstanding with both, dude, the run block, but also the pass block, man. I mean, and this is an offensive line. If I were to tell you that one of these line, I don't know the health of the Bengals line, but if I were to tell you the left tackle, which is a pretty premier position, and the right guard were the starters were out for this game, you would have told me that was probably the Bengals offensive line. The Eagles offensive line looked phenomenal. And by the way, they're going against a top 5 sack leader in Hendrickson. And Fred Johnson had a hell of a game. How many times did Hurts get sacked this game, Colin?
None.
Goose egg. Not one time did he get sacked this game. And there was good design. The Eagles do some funny things sometimes. I don't know if other teams do this, but there's some pass plays where, like, the right guard will like randomly pull to go like hit the defensive end on the left side. And it's like a pass block play, and just like little things to help throw probably the star Hendrickson off. But and Gainwell had some good chips, but Fred Johnson also was handling his business one-on-one pretty good over there. I think the quarterback was hit one time in the whole game. It was unbelievable how well he played over there. Most teams can't find a great starting left tackle, let alone a backup. I mean, I'm just saying, I know I'm going on and on here, but on paper, a team with a backup left tackle who lines up against a guy who is a top 5 sack leader, that usually goes very poorly in the NFL. It usually does. It's like game record territory. And we weren't even close to it, man. He was phenomenal. He had a really good game. And Steen at right guard also had a really good game. I was really impressed with the line.
Yeah, and I believe it's under the Sirianni tenure, maybe the last 2 years, they're 14, I think now 15-1 when they run the ball more than they pass it. And yeah, you didn't hear Fred Johnson's name at all, which seeing him go up against a premier pass rusher wasn't probably the greatest matchup, but they had no problem. They got 2 backups in there, and they're still not really having an issue. Now, Tyler Steen, if I might go into thumbs down here. If I had to pick a thumbs down, it would be him for this game, for the sole fact that he had 2 penalties that erased 5 to 8 yard gains in the first half, which could have set them back. It ended up not costing them, but he had 2 costly penalties. I'm kind of hoping Mekhi Becton's back. Just something of note. There was hardly a bad player on the team. That stuck out to me that he had 2 penalties on good positive plays.
I thought one of those penalties was a little bit BS, though, if I remember correctly. It's tough because you don't get to see that stuff as well with the 22, but I thought one of those penalties was kind of a BS call, but I could be wrong. I thought he had a great game. I really thought everyone on the line had a great game. Devontae Smith, check this out. We had 3 receivers with a long of 28 or more. Grant Calcaterra, let's talk about that guy. He had a catch for 28 yards. A.J. Brown had one for 29, and Devonta Smith had one for 45. We all remember that play. It was a phenomenal pass. Great catch. You can't go back and watch those plays and look at the pocket. I'm telling you, it was unbelievable. I don't think there's been a game this year where Hurts has had such a clean pocket, and it's really amazing because we have these great, talented receivers, and if you can have that kind of pocket, it allows time for these plays to develop, and you can hit those. Those guys are going to get open. Smith and Brown are going to get open. Even the second-string tight end's going to get open. Man, they just unbelievable pocket. And these 2 things are obviously very related, but how many plays did you see where Hurts didn't find his guy and he rolled out to the right of the pocket like he likes to do sometimes? Bro, I think he did it maybe one time, if that. Hurts was in that pocket. He wasn't rolling out to the right or left. He wasn't scrambling to like buy time. He was comfortable back there, and it yielded amazing results. So good on him for utilizing that pocket and not like, oh, my first read's not there, I'm going to roll to the right because that's what's comfortable. Good for everyone. Good on all sides of the O-line, but also Hurts for utilizing that pocket and staying in there because those longer, medium, long routes did develop, and he was hitting dudes wide open down the field.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I find it hard to believe that there were more than 2 or 3 quarterback hits on Hurts all game.
I think I had one.
Just one?
One quarterback hit, and it was by a linebacker. So I don't have the play in front of me, but it makes me almost wonder. No, it's a linebacker, defensive end. Yeah, one. Joseph Osai. One quarterback hit.
And we saw during the Buccaneers game, he was running for his life. I want to touch on this.
Game even. He had like 4 sacks.
That's true. Yeah. The offense, this offense finally looks like it did what we thought it was going to be on paper in the beginning of the season. They have a great offensive line, even still with 2 backups in there. Now they have their full set of wide receivers, and even without Dallas Goedert, Grant, I'm still on a Terra right now, is
nice.
Thank you.
That's solid.
He's playing well.
He's playing great. I didn't think he was capable of this.
I didn't either. He is career high in back-to-back weeks. Well, his 2 career highest games in back-to-back weeks. And this team looks unstoppable. When you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and they're catching the ball, now everybody's off the line of scrimmage. You can't put, 8 in the box when you have to worry about those 2 guys on the outside. And then they run it up the gut with Saquon. And the fact that Saquon had carries up the gut for 15 yards, where, he's just boom through the hole in 1 second. He's already on the second level.
Yeah.
But he also, he's plenty great at running outside defensive ends and getting past linebackers. He's so fast, running over defensive backs. That last run that he had I believe it was the fourth quarter, we trucked that guy on the 5-yard line, almost tiptoed into the end zone. That's a second.
Which was unbelievable. How did he make it that far down the line?
That balance. You have a guy who's 6'1", 230 with that foot agility. He's a freak.
That's one of those runs where you're like, all right, when they show the slow-mo replay, we're going to see that he definitely hit a little white on the sideline there. And he wasn't even close.
Nope.
He just had trucked the guy, like you said, and he's one leg at a time, tiptoeing like a ballet dancer on the sideline. It was almost like, dude, why didn't you just finish the run and get the touchdown? I think he's so selfless. He was like, I'd rather tush push. Let's get Hurts his. That was unbelievable balance. It was like 5 yards. I couldn't believe that.
He's an athletic freak. Now, I don't think he's going to be on the Eagles long enough to reach this distinction, but he may, at the end of his tenure here, be considered the most talented running back that the Eagles have ever had. I don't think he'll ever be their best because he won't amass the stats needed to be considered that. But it's like A.J. Brown. Like, he's not the greatest wide receiver right now in Eagles history when you have Carmichael and Mike Quick, but Brown will get there. I don't know that Barkley will ever amass the stats, but I don't think there's any question that he's probably the most talented pure running back the Eagles have ever had.
Yeah, I guess it just means when you say best running back of all time, he'll make you have to clarify what you mean by best, because I agree with everything you just said completely.
Yeah.
I just, to your point and what you just said, he just can do everything, pretty much everything at a very high level. And then on top of that, he's a great leader. He's a great teammate. It's a tough to find complete package in like literally every way. Pretty awesome. Makes you wonder how why was everyone just not go? How did we get this guy? How did we get this guy?
Yeah.
How did he become available to us? It's wild. Good for them for prioritizing this guy. Good for them.
For the first time in a very long time, they paid a running back a lot of money, and it shows why. Because he is one of the best in the NFL, one of the best in the last 10 years. He might not be as good as Derrick Henry, but he's pretty damn good. I
wonder if one of the reasons we're able to prioritize him and value him so much is because he did play for the Giants. If he wasn't a guy that we saw twice a year, had to game plan for twice a year, saw how much up close and personal he was a game wrecker, maybe we don't go for him as hard. But because maybe we were so familiar with this guy, we're like, we got to get him. We've seen him up close and personal.
Or if he played for 6 years under a competent offense and offensive line, he'd be breaking records and would have probably gotten a more lucrative contract than the Giants were willing to offer him, because that was the reason he left. And you never know what kind of stats he would have and how much money he would have made had he been able to play behind a offensive line that is decent, let alone great.
Yeah.
I'm shocked at the turnaround in 2 weeks, because I was ready to tell Nick Sirianni to hit the road, and now they look like one of the best teams in the NFL.
Do you agree with this though? I made comment to this like a week or two ago. How I was like, even if we start looking amazing, I still think Nick Sirianni is still on the shortest of leashes, even if this team turns it around. And again, I don't want to give any wrong ideas that I think this is suddenly a Super Bowl team. We have so much to prove. The Bengals are a good football team. Their defense has been pretty bad most of the year. Their offense is really good. Their offense is really potent. Having said that, we mentioned that their offense has been much better since T. Higgins came back in week 3 or 4, whatever it was. Who didn't play this game? T. Higgins. So, there's a lot of that going on. You should celebrate this game and celebrate the win, but I don't want to give off like, oh, we're the best team in football again. But I said that, and I still stand by that, is that Nick Sirianni, I do think I don't look at him the same way anymore. Not that I loved him, but whenever I see him talking and his snarky little, I still it's not healed. The wounds are not healed from everything that he's been over this year and the last little while. And I don't know. I actually even had that thought. I was thinking that today. Hypothetically, if the Eagles won a Super Bowl with Sirianni, I'm wondering 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, what the perception. I still feel like it wouldn't be a great perception of Nick Sirianni. I still don't think that fans would magically fall in love with him. I don't know.
No, you're right. He's done enough small damage that
small damages. Yeah.
we're never going to be completely in love with this guy. Even if he brings us a Super Bowl, there's those little things where you remember this, remember that. He's never going to be universally loved like the way, say, Charlie Manuel was.
Yeah.
As a Philadelphia head
coach.
Dougie
P. I think people have a lot of love for Dougie P.
I agree. He just was in a bad situation at the end of his tenure with a bad team.
Yeah, and I don't think people have hate for him though.
Other stats I found, and these are courtesy of Brooks Kubena, who is the Eagles beat writer from The Athletic. Both pre-snap motion and under center snaps and how they've trended throughout this year. So the Eagles were, I believe, 68 or so % pre-snap motion week 1 against the Packers. They had 48 snaps with pre-snap motion. They were as low as 22 snaps with pre-snap motion against the Bucs. That was their season low. Second week of the season against the Falcons, they had 44. Last week it was 30, and 2 weeks ago against the Giants, it was 30. This week it was 43. So they're getting back to really running the pre-snap motion, and I can't, pick out specific plays, but it seems that when they're running this, the offense is doing better. And this is also their most under center snaps of the season. They had 21 against the Bengals, which is their most by a lot because their second most was last week against the Giants with 13.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
interesting.
Before that, they didn't have a game with more than 7. So they're always running with Hurts in the shotgun.
Yeah.
If I had seen that prior to rewatching the game, I would have kept an eye out. But that just shows me that they're really comfortable in their run game and they're leaning on it. They have been able to lean on it at end of games. But I mean, all signs are really looking good with the way this offense has performed. I do want to see it against a good defense. That's the caveat here.
Let me build on that. Just a fun fact. This is something we should have picked up. I should have picked up on this. I think last week is when we really started having this package. But did you know that we have a fullback?
Yeah, Ben Van Sumo wrestler.
Do you know that story? I didn't realize that was fully converted into the fullback, and I saw him on film, and I was like, who the hell is number 57 and what's he doing on offense?
Yeah, because he was a linebacker last year.
He was a linebacker.
I did not know he was fully designated a fullback even after watching the game. But I saw him in there for those 2 consecutive plays. I'm like, Ben Van Sumer. He's the Van Sumo wrestler.
He's still technically on the roster, a linebacker, I guess. But he's the fullback. And I looked it up after I saw him, noticed it on the film, and a lot of articles that just came out like last week. It looks like that he's converted into the fullback. He's apparently mentioned that it's a pretty big pain in the ass every time he comes into the game, but because his number is 57, I think it's 57, he always has to go up to the ref when he enters the game and says to declare that he's eligible or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, I think it's too late in the year to switch my number. But that's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
57
it was
fullback
an
game.
interesting wrinkle. I
So-
didn't expect to see that. We'll
Yeah.
see how that pans out going forward if they keep using that.
Yeah, apparently they're happy with him so far. I didn't.
Yeah, and I mean those two plays that he was in, they gave what like 5 and 8 runs off the or 5 and 8 yards.
Yeah.
On each run off the top of my head. So both of them worked.
Wanna-
I know we want to get to Phillies and Sixers here. Do you want to quickly do thumbs up, thumbs down, or
I was going to
did you
break down one play real quick before
Go for it.
before we go on.
Absolutely.
and
Hit me.
It is the play we're all pretty familiar with. Pull up my notes here. It was our first touchdown, the Hurts run, first touchdown of the game.
The first
that's
touchdown
not
was the
true.
tush push.
Yeah, that's not true. It was the second. I think it was the first in the second half.
The one
yeah, it was
to
the first drive of the second half.
that was the long one to Devontae, right?
No. The first of the second half was the quarterback run by Hurts to the outside.
Gotcha.
Now you're getting me wanting to confirm that. Make sure I'm not mixing stuff up here. Yeah, 7-yard run. So, you know me, like I think the RPOs are a little bit of a cluster, you know what, at times. And there was one RPO that we ran in this game that was the worst, I think, RPO we've ever run. They did an RPO. All of the linemen were like 5 yards down the field staring back at Hurts, and then Hurts just threw the ball into the ground, and they actually declined the penalty because we just had a horrible incompletion anyways. It was one of the worst RPOs I've ever seen. But we had it at like the 7-yard line, and from what I can tell, it was an RPO play. Hurts is in shotgun. He has the running back there with him. 3 wide receivers to the left side, Smith on the inside, and then Brown and Dotson on the outside. And then I think Calcaterra was lined up on the right side, either on the line or very close to it. Anyways, it's pretty simple play. Hurts snaps the ball, and then immediately you see Smith run that like bubble Smith route. Hurts never even really looks his way, but that's what makes me think it was an RPO as opposed to just a run option. Hurts kind of immediately goes for the handoff to Barkley, and it's perfect. The defensive end is in that classic spot where he has to make a decision, right? And I think most time everyone's like, contain. But if that defensive end takes one step inside, it's crazy. One step inside, and it's game over. And Hurts made a phenomenal read. Barkley sold it. You see the defensive end. He takes that one step inside, and then Hurts pulls that ball back and goes. All the offensive line had blocked down. He makes the right call, and there goes Calcaterra busting his ass out there to the cornerback, gets a fine block on the cornerback to seal the edge. Between me and you, I think the cornerback was like, "Oh, I'm blocked." It kind of looked like one of those like, I'm doing enough that I don't look bad in the film, but like I'm not fighting very hard. And then Hurts goes and easily runs it into the end zone. Just really good execution, really good read, albeit the defense looked sloppy and a bit clueless, especially going against a team that runs kind of a lot of these type of plays. It's a bit surprising. But I had to give a little shout out for an RPO actually being very well executed and resulting in a touchdown. It was great. It was just how you draw it up. It was beautiful.
Hurts is the definition of a dual threat quarterback. And that was funny because that run came after they put a graphic up on the screen that Hurts had, I think he has 6 regular rushing touchdowns and 14 tush push touchdowns. So almost all, and since the start of 23, I believe that is. And then, he seriously, like 2 plays later, he takes it on a bootleg out the outside on an RPO and scores. Yeah.
It was a great play. Great play call.
That was also his 14th game with multiple rushing touchdowns, which is the most by a quarterback all time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's won?
Jalen Hurts is number 1.
Oh, you said most by a quarterback of all time.
Most by a quarterback all time. 14 instances now he has rushed for 2 touchdowns in one game.
That's amazing.
A lot of that, again, is the tush push, because when they're on the fourth or on the 1 yard line, it's pretty hard for the defense to stop.
The one touchdown was a rare, the one they had to bring to replay to actually overturn it and call it a touchdown. That was a rare tush push where he actually kind of went up for it. That's pretty rare. Usually he's pretty good about staying low because that's where you get the drive and power from. But yeah, man, he's strong. It is what it is. Most of those are the tush push, but at the same time, even if, a lot of other quarterbacks couldn't be running that play the way he's able to run that play.
Yeah, and thankfully he did raise the ball up in the air, because if he had gotten it over the line and it wasn't up in the air, we probably would have never been able to see it on film or on camera. They might not have been able to confirm that was a touchdown.
This is classic, okay? You can say this about a lot of sports and maybe a lot of elements of football, but I don't know if you watch football at all, but they have the technology. I think we even talked about this like a year ago. They have the technology where they can easily line up and see if there was an offsides call or not by inches, centimeters, probably centimeters over there. But anyways, why can't we utilize a technology like that? Just a straight thing down the yard, and that's a line that doesn't move. Why can't we figure out a way to just be able to check, put something in that football thing there, straight line down the yard line? Did it get over? Did it touch the line at all? That seems like it wouldn't be that hard, Colin. What are we doing?
I have heard that they're looking into the chip in the football for next year. Whether or not it's going to be implemented in the regular season or not, if they still have to do some research, is to be seen. But they are, from what I'm hearing, looking at that.
Technology we should have, Colin. Come on.
I agree. Let's make this. We have the technology, Dan. Somebody has to have come up with this by now that we can utilize it efficiently and reliably.
And the last thing I want to say we were talking about the defense, but the Slay pass breakup in the first half in the corner of the end zone, that was a phenomenal play by Slay.
He's been playing good.
I think that was the second drive for the Bengals. I think that would have been 2 touchdowns, back-to-back drives for the Bengals. That was a phenomenal play by Slay. I meant to say it when we were going to talk defense, but then we moved along quickly. That was an amazing play. I know that Rodgers came in and had a great second half, obviously helped with the interception, but Slay looked pretty good out there as well.
Slay looked good. He left with a groin injury, so we'll have to keep an eye on that as it pertains to next week. But
he's been getting hurt like every game, I feel like.
Well, he's kind of old, Dan.
He's getting old.
He's not a spring chicken anymore. Big Play Slay's been around the block for quite a while. He's 31 now? He's starting to reach that age of no return for a cornerback.
Healthy enough to hop on old Parsons podcast every Monday. But...
yeah, well, that's neither here nor there, is it?
Yeah.
It's all right. As long as he's not hurting the team on the field, I'll give him a pass.
All right, Colin. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
All right. Well, I gave my thumbs down, and my thumbs up of the week is going to... I'm going to say... did I do Calcaterra last week? I did, didn't I? I think I did. I think I did. I'm trying to remember. I'm not going to go Calcaterra. I'm going to go Devontae Smith, because that catch in the end zone that Hurts threw to him. I mean, there's a lot of receivers in the NFL can make that catch, but not many of them can make it look as easy as he did. And I believe it was confirmed that is Jalen Hurts' longest air yard touchdown pass in his career.
What?
Yes. It was about 60
really
yards.
Surprising.
Yeah, 60.
Oh gosh.
60 air yards. And it was on a dime. I mean, Devontae Smith has that ability. We saw it at Alabama, and I'm glad we were seeing it in the NFL, to just elevate and put himself in a position that not many can because of his stature, to go up and get just about any ball that is in his vicinity. And not in the same way that, say, Alshon Jeffrey used to have, because he was 6'5", but he can just elevate himself with his small frame and jump higher than most. He can evade cornerbacks and safeties that are draped on him. Great play. Good to see him back. That's my thumbs up. So I'll let you go back to back with thumbs down and thumbs up this week.
It's a good thumbs up. It's a good catch. It's good. And it's really amazing to throw a ball 60 yards. Just that statement alone. To drop it in over defender at the back of the end zone. What are we talking about, dude? What are we talking about? I'm seeing a comment here. Do you want me to go thumbs up, thumbs down? We'll address it.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Throw your thumbs down.
Thumbs. We'll start thumbs down. Josh Sweat. Where are you, dude? Where are you, Josh Sweat? Why can't I find you? Where did you go away? Oh my gosh. And what I'm seeing is that I feel like we've seen this at times in the past where he looks like a little clueless out there and not always aware of his surroundings. Dude, there's a couple times where it's like he was at the quarterback and somehow Burrow got out of some of these broken down pockets and then would go and run it or extend the play and then pass it. Josh Sweat has got to be better. Josh Sweat he's getting paid pretty good too, man. And I think that we were hoping that he would be either as good as last year or take one more step forward. And he just is nowhere to be found. Need more production out of him. I don't even think he's on the stat sheet. I don't think that he did anything to get on the stat sheet, but he was out there. I can assure you that.
I saw him
frustrating.
He was in there. He just wasn't anywhere near where he should be.
Yeah,
it seemed he was kind of alone in space, and I don't know. He's just not. Yeah, he's not getting to the quarterback.
And thumbs up. Some good options here, and I just want to give a quick honorable mention on the other side of the D line. BG had a really good game against the run, man. He wasn't necessarily. I want to just go thumbs up for him. All right, I'll just go thumbs up for BG. BG had an awesome game, dude. And it wasn't like a big stat sheet game, and it wasn't a big sack the quarterback game. He was awesome against the run, man. Whether it be getting in the way, moving his, stringing out on the outside runs or the toss runs and bringing his man out and extending. Dude, he was physical up front. He was shedding blocks. He was allowing for lanes to open up for the linebackers to come in and make a play. I thought the BG, and sorry if this is wrong me, but I thought that this was a little bit of a year for him, kind of a little bit of like along for the ride kind of year. He's pretty old. And you just wouldn't expect this. He's had a pretty low-key good year, decent year, at least for maybe what we were expecting. He was so phenomenal, especially, again, against the run in this game. Just, he really stood out to me. When I was taking notes watching the film, it was like, BG, great play against the run. BG, great play against the run. He was really dominant up front. I was very impressed.
We'll table this for maybe a couple of weeks down after we get more data, but I think it says a lot that Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are not the ones that we're talking about. Certainly Davis, but the fact that BG is having this much of an impact is something to, I think, note as we go forward and see whether he's able to keep it up. If Davis and Carter continue to either improve or decline, we'll table that for a few weeks from now after we see what happens.
And we just got to put it out there. Cooper DeJean had a great game.
So good.
Great game.
So good.
He got a couple times. It's Jamar Chase. It's Jamar Chase.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to happen. But Jamar Chase got too. All right. On a 4th down play. There was a turnover on downs right there. Cooper DeJean is looking good, man. The rookies are looking good, Colin.
They look damn good. He saved a touchdown on the Trent Irwin flat route where he tackled him in open field. Looks really good.
He's fast. He's freaking fast.
He's very fast. So I want to throw this out to you. I responded in the chat, but I want to get your opinion because we talked about it a little bit earlier, and we appreciate that people are listening live. Iceman Owns on the YouTube threw this out there. Do you think you would still have the same take on Sirianni if all of the Browns game stuff didn't happen? Was that the breaking point, or if there have been enough things before? Because we were saying that, Sirianni, I don't think is ever going to be universally loved, or you brought that up. And I know we talked about it even like 2 weeks ago. He was nearing Gabe Kapler level of annoyance. I think there's been enough
dangerous waters, my friend.
I think there's been enough of his weird sayings at press conferences, being goofy, pandering to the fans, talking down to reporters. I just don't like those things. He's not a quote unquote Philly guy who, and I kind of hate that term, but you know what I mean when I say that. He's not really endearing himself to the fans with the way he carries himself. I wanted to know if you agreed or disagreed with that.
Well, I'll say this. I think you have been saying that for at least a year now. You've been saying that, and I've kind of been the one that's kind of like, fighting back a little bit on it. So obviously, you've been saying that kind of stuff well before the Browns incident. And I will say, when the Browns incident happened, I was big on, listen, the media BS about the he said, she said, all that is stupid and a waste of my time. And I even said, like, bring the kids in the presser. You're saying that he, not you, but like people are saying he did that on purpose because he knew people were going to. Come on, stop. Like that's all just annoying fluff to me. But his whole attitude and energy and his whole like, we beat a good football team today. We beat everyone's really good in the NFL. And if you just win a game to the Cleveland Browns by 4 points, you should be really, really proud of that. You should be really, really proud. No, stop, dude. Yeah. So to me, that's the side of it that's much, much, much more annoying. Is that whole energy and vibe? I think it doesn't. I think the Brown situation expedited it for sure, but also the season that we've been having leading up to that Browns game, and then yes, we finally won a game against the Browns, but it was still a pretty pathetic win. And then him talking like we should be really proud of this win. I think that's big on it too. Is that, listen, man, you got really freaking lucky to beat this team. That sucks, by the way. And I think that's added layers. I think it's a lot more than just he was engaging with a fan.
Yeah. He was giving a lot of Jason Garrett Clapper on the sideline vibes.
Yeah.
So World Series Game 4 comes up shortly.
And it's the stupid decision making in the fourth down, going for it like crazy on fourth down every single time this year. Also, by the way,
yeah,
it's been before the Browns. I would say it really horrible decision making and not taking ownership on some things. Yeah. So I'm done. But yeah,
case made, Dan, and I agree with you. We do want to wrap this up because Game 4 of the World Series is shortly approaching, and we want to touch on the Flyers, who just snapped their 6-game losing streak since their game
with
one
a 7-5 win.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I'm trying to. I don't know. It's hard to get into hockey this time of year, but we will at least touch on it. They snapped a 6-game losing streak, play again tonight. And the Sixers are in the news because the organization was fined $100,000 for the way they've been handling the Joel Embiid situation, which, if you're not familiar, Joel Embiid will not be playing tonight, which is his, I believe, 4th missed game of the season. And to start the season, he was not designated with an injury. They were basically load managing him without an injury designation. He did not play opening night against the Milwaukee Bucks on national television. And the NBA is basically like, what the hell, Sixers? Either he's injured or he's not. And if he's not injured and he's not playing, that's not the way the NBA runs. So the NBA is unhappy that the Sixers are load managing Joel Embiid. I think a lot of people in Philly are considering Joel Embiid soft, but then there's also a large contingent where there's always that loud minority. He's like, he's soft. And Joel Embiid's the most underappreciated athlete in Philadelphia. I stand by that. He puts up 50. We're like, good. He should do that. That's not necessarily the case. Not a lot of people in the NBA can do that.
And he's overcome some pretty significant injuries over the last 5 years.
Yes. But everybody was saying, oh, he was healthy enough to play in the Olympics and win a gold medal, and he can't play in the preseason or to start the season. I don't care. As long as he can play in May and June, whatever you need to do, find Josh Harris $1 million. I don't care. The more healthy Embiid is going into the playoffs, the more likelihood the Sixers have of winning a NBA championship, which is all we want to see. I mean, just get out of the second round for starters, but we cannot waste the Joel Embiid era with nothing to show for it. It would be an absolute waste of the entire process and everything we've been going through for the last 10 years.
You know me. I said give him the Han Solo treatment. Do it.
I've never seen Star Wars, so you're gonna have to explain that one to me.
Really?
Yep, I've never seen Star Wars.
Jabba the Hutt, he like freezes. Maybe someone could say the exact. I thought it was like a cryo chamber or something. He like freezes him So
Okay.
he's like frozen in a block. It
Yeah.
wasn't ice, but think about just being frozen in ice, basically.
Yeah, like
And then they just
SpongeBob did to
melted him.
Man Ray.
Then years pass by, the good guys get Han back, and they yeah, nice. And then they unfreeze him, and he's healthy. He's good to go. Good to go.
Put the man on ice
Freezing
until
chamber.
Yeah. Put the man on ice
Carbon.
until
That's
December.
what it is. It's a carbon freezing chamber. Give him the carbon freezing chamber treatment.
I'm down.
Also, the only problem with this is we're just like we're gonna run the wheels off of Tyrese Maxey, who, by the way, had another just unbelievable game the other day. Did you see about the Pacers-Sixers game?
I saw the score, but that was about it. I saw it went into overtime.
Yeah, Tyrese Maxey finished the game with 45 points. He shot he was 5 for 17 on 3-pointers, Colin.
Oh my God.
He
He's just
shot
chucking it up there.
17. It went into overtime. They had a pretty impressive comeback, a great game, and they would have won it in regulation. And then Tyrese Halliburton made a stupid, ridiculous 3-point like adjusted shot that went in to put in overtime. So that's the only thing, is we got to obviously win enough games now to get to the playoffs. And if these other guys aren't playing, you are going to be seeing some wear and tear on the guys playing right now. Are you not?
Yep, pretty much. Paul George and Embiid have still not played a game. They will not play tonight. We'll have to keep an eye on when they will make their season debut, but that will not be tonight.
Not tonight.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. Dan, I just want to say I did tell you I was leaning Dodgers, and it looks very much like the Dodgers World Series.
Yeah, I think that I might have got this one wrong here, Colin. How about Aaron Judge?
Sucks.
It's crazy.
How can he not perform in the playoffs? We were talking about baseball, and I thought about this today, and it goes off of our last Phillies conversation. A hot offense, not all of the time, but a lot of the time, trumps a good pitching staff, because we talked about how Zach Wheeler keeps the Phillies in games, but if the offense isn't running and they're not hitting the ball, you can't score, you can't win. And Freddie Freeman, the rest of the Dodgers offense, they're hitting the ball. And the Yankees are not.
And, the bottom of that lineup is also contributing. It's Kike Hernandez, and it's like, whoa, you're good at baseball again. Holy cow. It's Tommy Edman, who they got at the trade deadline when he was literally still on the injured list. Tommy Edman, he's been unbelievable, dude. And he plays like every
350?
Position. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, he's
supposed to hit like lefties good. Well, he's doing it all right now, Uncle Steve. It's unbelievable.
I can't wait. All right, we're going to log off. Game 4 of the World Series starts very soon. To the people who listened, watched, streamed, thank you very much. This has been a very fun episode. I hope we get back to it next Tuesday after the Eagles play the Jacksonville Jaguars for only their second home game or third home game of the season. It'll be nice to have the Eagles fans back at home.
Did they bump that up from an 8:00, by the way?
Yeah, they moved it from 8:00 to 4:00 because the Jags suck. But it is what it is. Some interesting games on the Eagles schedule, but we'll talk to those when we get to it. That'll be the end for us. Dan, you got anything for the people on the way out, or we gonna watch some baseball?
I would just say when you're done eating breakfast, make sure you rinse that cereal bowl straight away. That stuff sets like concrete.
You heard the man. Rinse it and put it in the dishwasher.
There you go, Colin.
All right, Dan.
Good advice.
It's been a pleasure. Oh, and last thing. If you've watched the stream before and you haven't this episode, please turn into YouTube, because you're going to see a different man under the DG3 tag, because Dan shaved his beard and looks like an absolute different person. And I got to say,
give him the Rizzler.
Baby face looks good on you, bud. We'll see how long it lasts.
Thanks, pal.
All right, take it easy. Say hi to the pups and Jillian for me, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Go Birds.
Go Birds.